The Might of the Will. An article by William Walker Atkinson. That strange manifestation of life and mind, which we call the will, gives us perhaps the nearest approach to an inside view of the actual workings of the universal energy that we can ever obtain. The essence of will is closely identified with the essence of the universal energy. Some of the best authorities in the realm of philosophical thought have identified the universal energy itself with a grand cosmic will that acts, moves, accomplishes, that does things in the universe. Be that as it may, the fact remains that the will is found to occupy the very center of being in every living form, in every moving, acting thing. The very term itself is most difficult of definition. The dictionaries would have us believe that it is solely the part of man that chooses and decides, while the concept is so wrapped up with that of desire that it is most difficult to disentangle them. On the other hand, the popular usage gives to the term the sense of determined, persistent application, etc. The truth is that the term will really has for its essence, its heart, the idea of action. It is the will that does all the acting, all the real work of life. Every mental, as well as every physical, act is made possible only through the exercise of the will. So you see, the will is really the motive power that drives all of the machinery of life, the steam that runs the life engine that operates the mental and physical mechanism. But we shall not here consider at length the metaphysical or philosophical conceptions of will. We are concerned here merely with that phase of the will's mental activity which agrees with the popular conception of the term, that of the dogged, determined, persistent application of the universal energy in the work of life. We all know what we mean when we speak of a man of strong willpower or of one of a weak will. The first individual we know is one who will apply the force of his persistent, determined, dogged will to the tasks of life, holding it there in spite of all obstacles and hindrances. The second, we are equally aware, is one who is easily driven from his purpose, and who has not enough spirit in him to push through to a successful termination the matters in which he engages, often with a primary show of enthusiasm. We often hear the term an iron will, and generally believe it to represent the highest form of the manifestation of will. But the figure may be improved upon. An iron will may be strong, but a sudden shock or undue pressure may crack and destroy it. On the other hand, a steel will is able to bend and give when necessary, only to immediately spring back into its original position and exert its original force. The flexible sword of Damascus steel represents the highest conception of a strong implement. It will give momentarily, but it cannot be broken or overcome permanently. Likewise, the finest steel watch spring exerts its constant pressure upon the mechanism of the watch and makes the wheels go round. Steel structures represent a greater strength than do iron ones, and concrete reinforced with steel is one of the most durable and strongest building materials known today. So, friends, let us hear no more of the iron will. Let the figure be changed to that of the will of steel. Several years ago, in writing of the will, I used the following words, which I shall now venture to repeat, for they represent most clearly my idea of this use of the will. One of the characteristics of the positive will is its quality of persistence, that quality which manifests in steadfastness, firmness, and constancy in carrying out and pursuing the design, business of course commenced undertaken, perseverance in the face of obstacles and discouragements, steadfastness and determination in the face of opposition or hindrance, stability, decision, perseverance, fixedness of purpose, tenacity. These are the terms applied to the persistent will. Persistency combines the qualities of continuity and firmness, steadfastness and stick-to-itiveness. The will presses up close to the task, holds itself there firmly, and stays there until victory is won. Success in many cases depends upon the capacity for holding on. Many a man has fought a brave fight, but, lacking persistency, has relinquished his efforts just before the turn of the tide, and has fallen back, defeated, not by his rivals, not by circumstances, not by opportunities, but by himself. Well has Emerson said of this power of the mind, "I know no such unquestionable badge and ensign of a sovereign mind, as that often tenacity of purpose, which through all changes of companions or parties or fortunes, changes never, bates no jot or heart or hope, but wearies out opposition and arrives at its port. The reason of the extraordinary power of the will may be found in the thought that the will is the direct instrument of the I, or ego. All the rest of the mental or physical instruments of the ego are indirect as compared with the will. In fact, they are used by the ego only through and with the medium of the will. Ever think of that before? Roll it over in your mind a moment and see if it is not true. Can you think of even a single action of the ego that is not performed through and by means of the medium of the will consciously or subconsciously exerted? You will agree to this statement after thinking over it a little. It is hard to disentangle will from desire at one of the poles. It is equally difficult to disentangle the will from the ego itself at the other pole. So stating it in a familiar form, we may say that when we witness a marked manifestation of willpower, we are really witnessing an exhibition of the ego on the job. I have repeatedly said, during the several years of my writing on the subject, that when we say that we wish to strengthen our will, we really mean that we desire to strengthen and build up our mental machinery for using the will. We have within us all the will that we will ever require, that and more, too. What we need to do is to build up, strengthen, and develop the mental mechanism by which we are able to manifest the will. Our mental machinery, even our mental engines, need to be built up, so that the steam of will may have an opportunity to show what it can do for us. It is true that we arouse the steam of will by fanning the flame of desire, and that we direct its force by means of the mental pictures, ideals, and character of our concepts. But it is also true that the steam of will, once aroused, will not do the work for us unless we supply it with the proper mental machinery of habit, experience, and actual use. In our next paper, entitled Mental Paths, we will consider the nature of this machinery and the means whereby it may be built up. In the meantime, let us take a running glance at the several most familiar of the manifestations of the will in the direction of doing things efficiently. One of the most startling manifestations of the power of will in human life is that which we generally indicate by the term resolute, which means having a fixed, unalterable purpose, determined, firm, constant, absolute direction to a certain end. It is this particular manifestation of will that Buxton emphasized in his famous saying, "The longer I live, the more certain I am that the great difference between men, between the feeble and the powerful, the great and the insignificant, is energy, invincible determination. A purpose once fixed, and then death or victory. That quality will do anything in this world, and not talents, no circumstances, no opportunities, will make a two-legged creature a man without it." And to this may well be added the equally celebrated saying of that master of resolution, Disraeli, who said, "I have brought myself by long meditation to the conviction that a human being with a settled purpose must accomplish it, and that nothing can resist a will which will stake even existence upon its fulfillment." It is this will, manifested as resolution, that has set the great characters of history apart from the common herd of men. It is this quality that enables men and women to beat down apparently unsurmountable obstacles and hindrances, and which drives them to attainment with an irresistible force. The men who have done things, the great inventors, discoverers, builders, merchants, warriors, have been filled with this mighty power of resolution, which carried them along almost in spite of themselves. To such individuals always comes the feeling, amounting to practical certainty, that they are being animated by some power behind them, which fills their being, and carries them along almost independent of their personal force once the power has been roused into action. This power is simply the universal energy, fanned into action, manifesting as will, and blazing forth, often in a dangerous manner, once it has found the vehicles and channels of expression. Resolution is the breaking down of the barriers of timidity, doubt, indifference, fear, and unbelief, and thus allowing the power of will to manifest itself freely. The will is in each of us, even in you, and will manifest itself in action if you will but trust in it and supply it with the vehicles of its expression. Another interesting phase of will manifestation is that which may be called persistence, the tenacious, never let go, hold fast characteristics of the successful individual. Such individuals have as their motto, "When you feel that you must let go, then hang on the harder, for victory is near." Such individuals endure, persist, hang on, refuse to be shaken off, take a firm bulldog grip, and then bid the world do its worst. Many a man of fair resolution and even great talents, failing in the faculty of persistency and perseverance, will let go just a little too soon, and thus fail to accomplish that which he has rightfully earned. It is the dogged persistency which wins many a battle of life, and the lack of it which loses many a battle. Hold the tool of the persistent will up to the whirling block of life, and you will be able to carve that block into the shape and form indicated by your desires and ideals. But the tool must be held firmly and persistently. And now, in conclusion, let me call your attention to a fact well known to students of the new psychology, but generally overlooked by the average person: the fact of the wonderful subconscious use of the will, which accomplishes such great results when once set into motion. So many persons seem to think that the use of the will depends entirely upon its conscious direction. Many even go so far as to think of will manifestation as a matter of frowns, compressed lips, and gritting teeth. To such will come as a strange revelation the statement that the majority of the activities of the will are generated on the subconscious planes of the mind. And yet, such is the fact. Modern psychologists know that the will, once directed firmly toward a certain object and held firmly in the mind by persistent attention, will soon begin to generate a marvelous power in the subconscious regions of the mind of the individual, which power will strengthen him and urge him on to fresh and greater efforts. This power will also attract to him the persons, things, and circumstances calculated to manifest the desire, force, and willpower striving toward expression. Persons who have cultivated the power of subconscious will have discovered that the subconscious mentality may be charged, directed, or commanded to develop within the person the characteristics and qualities calculated to bring about a successful accomplishment of the things desired or willed by the individual. Moreover, they have also discovered by experience that the subconscious mentality, charged with the awakened will develop the necessary ideas, plans, and in other ways perform much of the drudgery of mental work for one. In fact, so far from it being true that the will is absolutely bound up with the conscious activities, it is nearer the truth to say that 9/10 of the activities of the will have their groundwork and foundations actually laid beneath the threshold of consciousness in the human mind. Or, stating it in another form, it is a psychological truth that will is more fundamental than conscious mentation, and that the latter is rather an evolution of the former than otherwise. In short, that conscious mentation was evolved by will because it was needed by the latter in its urge of evolutionary manifestation. When we are able to manifest will power on the subconscious planes, we have at our disposal a great elemental force awaiting our intelligent direction and control. When the race of men arrive at a full realization of the possibilities of the use of the willpower within them awaiting expression, they will become almost as gods. It is well that the great plan has evidently provided that before such knowledge may become common, the race must make enormous progress in intelligence, self-control, self-mastery, and above all in love, so that this great natural power may be used wisely and well in the interest of the race as a whole, rather than as an instrument of personal satisfaction and gain. End of article.